Congratulations on winning.
Thank you very much.
How did you approach such a serious episode from history and make it engaging for an audience that was probably not aware of it?
It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I got hired for that job on the basis of a script for a TV drama I wrote called Murder by My Father, which I thought that was quite difficult to do because it was trying to get into the head of someone who ends up killing their daughter and looking at the details and specifics of honour violence, which is not necessarily a natural fit for Doctor Who, but I was very lucky to get asked by Chris Chibnall, who runs the show, if there's one story you could write for Doctor Who, what would it be? And I was like, well, I feel like there is a real lack of understanding of history in this country, and I feel that the history of partition is not just Indian history, it's also British history. There is culpability, there is a long lead from British individuals as part of the creation of that event. So it felt this was a story I'd like to tell to a mainstream audience in particular. So that was the idea. It sounded really great, and then it was like, how the hell are you going to do that? And it was just trying to find the balance of serving what the show does and trying to bring something new to it. The first Doctor Who episode was directed by a British Asian man, but both me and Mallory Blackman were the first writers of colour in 55 years on that show. And so I felt like we were actually, through making a story that was educational, which is what the original remit of that show was, and also talking about those characters and in that period of history, we were actually harking back to the origins of the show. So in that way, it didn't feel like an aberration, actually. And then just in terms of the specifics, I knew that I didn't want to do a story that was about Mountbatten or any of the high-up white individuals in that, because it was like their story has been told and their understanding of their guilt and complicity, that's all been done. What I haven't really seen on British screens is a story of people for whom that event, they didn't want it to be part of their lives, but it was, and so how do you deal with that? And just really focusing on the everyday people whose stories aren't really understood in this country. And so it was there's a lot of work. I went through like 15 different drafts of the story, but I think we arrived at the one that felt best for.
What are you working on now? Can you tell us about?
Yeah, so working on a few plays, which I'm really excited about. I'm doing a bit more television, a lot of sci-fi stuff, which I'm really excited about because I grew up wanting to write sci-fi stories, so I'm really happy about where I am.
Does that open more doors for you, the Doctor Who episode and the play that you wrote at the Bush Theatre as well?
Yeah, it did. Both An Adventure and that Doctor Who episode were both the fullest expressions of everything I've wanted to do, and get to work with predominantly British Asian casts. Like, particularly when we did that Doctor Who episode, it was so nice to be able to see the castings for that and go, I know them, them and them from theatre, and they're all brilliant, please hire them, and they did, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. And so it was a real joy and real privilege for me to get to write parts for this brilliant generation of actors who are coming through, so I'm just really excited about that.
Fantastic.